Good evening. Welcome to the Pearl Report. I'm Diana Lin. A small and independent church on Hong Kong Island has made a deal to share its property for the next 100 years with a developer. Under the arrangement, the church will end up owning luxury rental units at a prime address. As Chris Lincoln reports, the Director of Audit has recently put revenue streams for charities like this under scrutiny.
And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you
This
weeping?"
was the final Easter Sunday at this sanctuary, built after World War II. This is the second Union Church at this Kennedy Road site, right beside the Peak Tram. There was nothing but rubble left of the first church when members returned following the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong during World War II. The church had been there since 1890. Before that, the Union Church was at Staunton Street, where it opened in 1865. And the very first Union Church was located on Hollywood Road.
Well, we're actually the oldest church. I mean, we were established in 1844.
For now is Christ risen from the dead.
Christ has risen. Immediately following this service, there will be an opportunity for baptism.
We baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
The church says it's growing.
We're now probably at our strongest, 500 or 600 people coming through the doors every Sunday at a whole number of services.
We now unite together in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
And in more than one building. Growth will soon be skyward. Earlier this year, the Union Church entered into an agreement with Henderson Land to rebuild the church at this site.
The development is going to be a church plus residential complex, which is now 22 stories high.
The church buildings sit on land zoned GIC. That means it's set aside for government, institution, or community use. However, building flats can be permitted on this type of land upon application. This property belongs to the church, and there is still more than 850 years left on its 999-year land lease. Putting flats here does not require lease modification, so the landowner does not have to pay a premium. For this neighborhood, the cost of a piece of land like this on the open market would be in the billions of dollars.
There are very few lease conditions imposed by the lease itself, but part of the development plan with the government, we have agreed, and the condition has been imposed, that at least 51% of the site, of the built-up area, will be used for what they call GIC purposes. So in that way, the non-GIC portion, the normal residential portion, will be at 49% or less.
Henderson will pay the full cost of the rebuild.
And in return, they will be able to sell on the 99-year basis.
26 flats plus 26 car parking spaces.
I think the unit price will be up to 40,000 per square foot. So the apartment may be around, say, 80 million for the largest one. There's a development which was built within the last 3 years, which is called Kennedy Park. And actually now their asking price is ranging from 37,000 to almost 40,000 per square foot.
At the end of the 99-year term, Henderson will return the land to the church. Church leadership says the developer and the church both come out ahead.
It enables us to get new church facilities on a debt-free basis. And there will be some residential units that the church could retain.
7 flats are supposed to be used only by the church. Together with other church-related facilities on the property, like the sanctuary, the total square footage will meet the 51% GIC threshold. But about a dozen other flats will be put up by the church for rental. Luxury flats in a building where flats will range from 1,300 to 2,000 square feet.
Must be more than 100K, yeah, at least for the apartments of their average.
That's more than $1.2 million a month in rent. The church's 2016 annual report states total revenue was some $15.96 million. Expenses were $13.16 million. Most of the money was spent on staff, indicated here in blue. Less than $3 million was spent on various church ministries, money directed outside the church.
Union was founded by missionaries. It's always been, the term is missional. You know, we've always tried to look outside our doors.
Those residential units could be used to generate recurring income, rental income, which would then be used towards the church's charitable objects and purposes.
That won't happen for at least 5 years. And how the money will be used apparently hasn't been decided.
That's a discussion that's happening. The mission committee, which has given so much overseas, has been asked by the deacon board and members of the congregation, can we do more for Hong Kong?
The new resources would allow different ministries, different community work to expand. There's still 90% of the people out there who never really heard of the good news, have never really kind of been blessed of people who are happy, excited, they found the purpose in life.
The Shen Kung Hui, or Anglican Church, went into business with Cheung Kong to redevelop its former St. Christopher's home in Tai Po in the 1990s. Inland Revenue said at some point the church had gone from selling an asset to engaging in trading. And in the tax collector's view, that made the church subject to profits tax on its portion of the eventual sale of luxury flats and parking spaces. This went to the courts. It still hasn't been settled. The Union Church is aware of the case and notes significant differences. In Tai Po, the properties were being sold. On Kennedy Road, they'll be rented. In order to be tax exempt, the Union Church would have to show its money-making occurred while actual charity work was being carried out, or that the work was done by people who were meant to benefit from the charity.
I don't think the rental revenue is tax-free. That's not what I believe that situation to be.
The plan was threatened at one stage because buildings on GIC land in the district were being capped at 3 stories. The church, though, had prior planning approval for 22 floors, so it struck a deal with the government to stay out of court.
If they allowed the previous plans to be built on a grandfathered basis, then the 3-story height limit wouldn't apply to the grandfathered plan.
Why can a church share a GIC site which is used for religious purpose with a developer, share it in profits, and allowing the developer to build a high-rise, luxurious tower in place of the church and gain from it?
The Central and Western Concern Group watches for planning applications and sometimes objects.
The existing buildings here, especially the Sentry and the Bell Tower, are graded buildings, and they have been around in this neighborhood for over 60 years. It has become a landmark for this neighborhood.
The buildings were given a grade 3 rating in March. That doesn't stop the landowner knocking them down.
I think this is a landmark building, and I was at a lunch yesterday where someone got very angry because they wanted to get married at Union Church. And I feel very badly that that's providing a community service which won't exist for 5 years.
It's a very fine structure. It's got a lot of memories for many people. But a church is the people, it's not the building.
The demolition will start this year at this site, and will take between 5 and 6 years, depending on the foundations.
Architect Johnny Kember is a church member.
We're trying to incorporate as much of the existing stone cladding that you can see on Kennedy Road and within the church as possible. We may not even have enough, actually, of the old stones. The church itself, in its current iteration, has a wonderful welcoming feel with this large staircase that leads up to the fellowship garden. And so we've maintained that element.
A lot of rebuilt churches in Hong Kong, like this Catholic church on Star Street in Wan Chai, end up with a tower on top of them. That won't happen to the sanctuary here.
The new sanctuary space will sit directly on top of where the sanctuary space is now. And rather than the sanctuary environment being subsumed into a normal-looking podium structure that one sees everywhere in Hong Kong, the sanctuary is in a separate building.
It will be bigger.
The ceiling, I think, is approximately 9 meters, and the new sanctuary space is probably going to be about 12. So it's considerably larger. The size of the balcony is much, much greater.
The first 5 floors of the main building will be for church use.
We're building a fellowship hall to house at least 350 people, but it's a multifunctional hall, and it can be for all kinds of different celebrations or events.
When we come back,
it's a bit of a shock to find out that, oh, it's going to be demolished, much like the same way that my old church here has been demolished.
Trying to stay ahead of the wrecking ball. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Pearl Report. Church demolition is not unheard of in Hong Kong, but how about seeing your church torn down twice? Chris Lincoln continues his report.
I started going to this church when I was a little girl. I was christened here, and then been going to Sunday school and grew up here, basically.
And Verna was there 20 years ago when the Church of Christ in China on Bute Street in Mongkok was torn down.
It's just hurtful to see all the demolition going on, like the bulldozer pillars, the wall lying in ruin, and I just feel a part of me, my connection to it, is forever lost. It felt very traumatizing, and yeah, eventually I just stopped coming here.
The church is now at the bottom of a tower. There's a car park, a kindergarten, and floors of community services in the building.
To be honest, I don't find it a very attractive building. It's just another gleaming tower block in Hong Kong. I don't find it very special. I think there's something very sacred and something very meaningful about an old church building. We moved to Hong Kong Island in the summer, and then we were looking for an English-speaking church, and then we went to Union Church, and we just found that, the teaching is good.
I reached into my pocket and found the cross from Palm Sunday. Lift high the cross.
It's got a good community, and still it was in a historical building. In a few months' time, I'm going to feel quite lost, I think.
3 years ago, the congregation voted about 77% in favor of this rebuilding plan.
We looked at rebuilding on this site, keeping this sanctuary, but putting another couple of floors. But when we looked at the cost of that and the benefit we would accrue from that expense, it just didn't make sense.
In August, the church will move here, 8,000 square feet in this building on Queens Road East for 5 years. Henderson Land covers the cost to lease the space. Church members, though, were told recently they'll need to raise $10 million for the move and to fit out the temporary space. The Methodist International Church, just up Queens Road East, is also being rebuilt. The former pastor here, Howard Meller, had advice for the Union Church on moving.
He did tell us that no matter where we move, we are going to go into exile. And there are some people who we will not see for 5 or 6 years.
Do you worry about people here who are part of this congregation who say, I don't agree with this, and maybe you won't see me back again?
I worry, I feel badly, and my hope is that if they're not happy here, that they find just the right church.
There's been a Methodist church on this corner since May 1893 on land that was granted by the government at $1 a year for 999 years.
And that lease had limits. There is to be no commercial activity here. The Methodist International Church is being rebuilt to 22 stories. The top half will be used by the Methodist Conference of Hong Kong. The church gets the bottom half. We spoke with the church and invited it to speak with us for this program, but didn't hear anything back. It has a Facebook page for redevelopment. Much of what's there has to do with fundraising.
To celebrate the redevelopment of MIC, we release our Vision of Grace CD.
As of February 22nd, the church said it was still $160 million short of its $450 million target. Its magazine reports the Methodist Church of Hong Kong is helping fund the rebuild by selling properties, cashing in investments, and taking out a loan. The International Church, too, has sold properties to raise money. And Methodists around Hong Kong have been asked to contribute and join in fundraising activities. Earlier this month, the Director of Audit published a report on charities granted land to run hostels that are accused instead of operating as hotels. That includes this one, the Ozo Wesley, just down the block from the Chinese Methodist Church on Hennessy Road in Wan Chai. The church is behind this through Methodist Center Limited, a private company with tax-exempt status. Mary Mulvihill took notice of this place more than 5 years ago when she attended Town Planning Board hearings concerning Wan Chai.
I was very surprised during the process to discover that the Wesley Hotel was actually a hostel.
This place used to be the Sailors and Soldiers' Home, also run by the Methodist Church and opened in 1929.
The audit report said in the early 80s, EXCO supported the idea that instead of surrendering land, grantees should be allowed to redevelop sites in order to improve social service facilities. They'd be permitted to have profit-making commercial activities there to offset the cost of building and maintenance, and to run the social service facilities there.
In 1988, the government granted MCL land at $1,000 a year until 2047. The conditions said the grantee shall develop on the lot a non-profit-making hostel of not more than 400 rooms. In his investigation, the Director of Audit found there is nothing in the grant that defines the terms hostel and hotel. And if the hostels being investigated in his report don't seem like hostels, government said they don't need to in order to comply with their grants.
In the absence of specific provisions governing aspects such as the clientele, services standards, and charges of the hostels in question, the Lands Department could not unilaterally assume that the hostels should be run in a manner different from commercial hotels.
Government told Audit the grant condition that said MCL had to run a non-profit-making hostel did not mean
the grantee concerned was prohibited from making any profit from operating the facilities.
This was not exactly a big secret that this site was being used as a commercial hotel. Everybody in Hong Kong knows this. When you pass by, you can see it there.
Mary started complaining to government and to LegCo.
Lands Department essentially did nothing for 20-odd years.
Under the grant, the Lands Department was given the job of monitoring what happened to the money being made here by MCL for Methodist Church use. But Lands didn't ask to see the accounts until 2013, 22 years after the hotel opened. Audit checked and found $70 million was paid to the church for the 3 years from 2013 to 2015. It said there was insufficient detailed information to show that income derived from the hostel, hotel, had been applied towards the social charitable purpose as stated in the lease condition. The hotel industry says charitable organizations are unfair competition, and government has to make sure that if charities are running hotels, they need to
provide a social, education, or religious service to the community or to your members or to your church or to your organization, but not for the public, like running as a commercial hotel.
As for the land, which is zoned GIC,
the Lands Department could resume the land, or number two, they can go to Town Planning Board and then the whole site could be zoned commercial and become a proper hotel. And then it would be taken away from the GIC sites, and another GIC site of an equal size would have to be found somewhere else to make up the shortfall.
a prime piece of land in Central with high-value heritage buildings on it could well be home to a new private hospital. That is the latest proposal for this land owned by the Sheng Kung Hui or Anglican Church. Earlier, the church had wanted to put up new buildings here. It reached a deal with government, though, to conserve its historic buildings and lower the height on new ones. In return, it would get room to grow on land the church was using on Mount Butler, but the neighborhood there rejected that. Now the proposal is a 25-story hospital. The site already has an old hospital, the much smaller Hong Kong Central Hospital, now closed. Earlier this year, the church appeared at Central and Western District Council to describe its plans.
I think it's really an excessive development here, right in the historic area of Government Hill and Bishop Hill. The proposed hospital has a glass facade, as you can imagine, a modern building. And this will pose a very strong and disturbing contrast with the existing heritage building, which are mostly 19th or early 20th century.
This is GIC land, and under the rules, putting a hospital here is always permitted.
Because of this big impact on the whole area, there should be more public consultation and more discussion and debate whether they should build this hospital here.
Well, thank you for watching our show. It will be re-aired on Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, as well as online and on mobile apps. Until next time, from the Pearl Report team, good night, good luck, and good health.